Evening all. How are we? Or morning all, or whenever you're listening to this.
Well,
all.
yeah, actually, yeah, because when it goes out at 7 a.m.
It does, yeah. So that's going to really throw people off.
Morning all.
Morning all, or evening all. When do you listen to a podcast?
Typically when I'm driving, so either in the morning coming to work or in the evening going home from work.
So do you? Because I'm the same. Like I'll maybe listen to it in the morning or afternoon, but I imagine it like a radio show in my head. Like, welcome to Robert Only Radio.
Sometimes I do listen to it in the shower as well. I have a little portable speaker that my phone can connect to.
Oh, there we
so
go.
I'll put it in into like a cupboard in my bathroom. I'll stick it on top of that, and I can hear a podcast. So it could be. Those are the three main podcast listening times.
Wow, in the shower, I've never considered that. I listen to music in the shower sometimes, but I
Right.
don't. I've never listened to a podcast in the shower.
So then typically what will happen is that as soon as I get into my car and turn my car on, my phone will connect, so it'll just carry on from where I stopped it. You know?
Which is a nice upgrade from your old car, considering you used to have to like wind it up before.
Proper Flintstones car.
Yeah, totally. Give it a good run first.
So just to frame this for people that more over sort of furlough time, I drove my wife's car because it's better than my old car. And after about 3 months, I turned my old car on, and all it smelled of was petrol. So that was not a good look. I think that lasted about 2 days before I went and got a new car. So.
Did it not cut out like on the motorway at one point?
It did when Gail was driving it when she was pregnant. Aye,
That's quite scary.
That was aye.
That's not nice.
I mean, it was an O2 plate, so it was nearly as old as you.
It's like
so.
18 years old. Thanks. I'm actually 19 years old.
So yeah, it owed no one nothing, and I didn't pay for it. It was granted to me by my mother. So, it was time to say bye. And I have a shiny new car, so it automatically syncs to my phone, which is wonderful because not even Gail's car will do that.
Oh, there you go.
It has a little competition between my phone and her phone. So depending who's in the car, sometimes it goes onto hers and sometimes it goes onto mine. But my car is like, nah, homeboy's phone.
Yep.
So it knows.
There is a steel snare drum, or one of the beautiful Yamaha snare drums behind you that is rattling a little bit.
Is it?
Yeah. Do you want to turn off all the wires?
I will. Okay, hang on.
Yeah, like cars are a funny one. My new car does that now as well. Before I would be like yours. I had a Fiesta.
I had a Fiesta too.
Yeah. Yours was substantially older than mine.
Yeah.
Though. Like
it was
mine
a Z-Tech.
It's like, calm down.
I know.
Calm down.
Now we're talking.
Now we're really talking. But mine would be the same. I would need to use like an aux cable to plug it in, so like it wouldn't start playing unless I did it.
Right.
So it's quite nice that when you're in the morning. That's one less thing to work.
Well, I also don't even need to look at the phone. I can just press a button and ask it to play Bluetooth from my phone.
Oh, that's cool.
So
that's not like Siri, is it?
No, it's their sync system.
Oh, okay.
It's Ford's sync system. So I just press a button on the steering wheel and say play Bluetooth music.
Right.
Or,
okay.
Connect to Bluetooth iPod or whatever.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty rad.
It's pretty cool. Yeah.
It's my life.
It's my life. It's my life now.
Cars and drums. This was not what we were going to talk about today. We'll get on to other stuff, but the other wonderful upside to getting a new car like that is it's huge in the back.
Yeah. Plenty of room for them drums.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's necessary,
Mm-hmm.
Trying to just get your drums anywhere in your car. Your old Fiesta was like, it was
the bum was scraping out the back.
It was quite funny when you had to go to Leeds and take drums to Leeds.
Not for me.
No. Please make it.
All the way down. For 4 hours.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Brutal.
So the upshot to having a shiny new car is that I can get lots of drums in it.
What's the most amount of drums you fit in a small vehicle? I've kind of set that up, right. The most I've managed to fit a 6-piece Tama Imperial Star with all the hardware and cymbals and 2 people and a bass guitar in a Peugeot 107.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
To put that in perspective, if you don't know what a Peugeot 107 is, it's basically like a lunchbox with wheels. Right. So I was pretty proud of that, and it still managed to move as well. Not safely, but it moved.
There's a question. I mean, some of the kits that we've had to put in customers' cars over the years when they've turned up with like a boot full, it's been pretty impressive what you've managed. Like, I think you can pretty much get anything in anything as long as the bass drum will go in the door.
Yeah. Because they're all smaller than the bass drum, so if you can get the bass drum in, you can get the rest in.
Getting 24s into your car can be fun, or typically hard cases tend to be oversized, obviously.
Yeah.
So a 22-inch hard case tends to be about 24.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to get that through a door can be fun, you know. I mean, Gail drives a Peugeot 2008,
Mm-hmm.
and we've had full kit and PA system,
And the two of you.
and the
Okay.
two of us in it. So I'm talking subs and tops, mixer, kit, hardware, all the cables, all the plugs. So we have two bags, like one for power, one for cables,
Mm-hmm.
microphones, cymbals. Yeah, you know, a change of clothes.
Yeah.
So like hold all and stuff.
yeah.
Can't see anything.
The mayor's daughter in the boot as well.
Mo Sizzlack. You can't see a thing
Yeah.
out your back mirror. But I guess it's just like driving a van.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. 'Cause
Um,
it took me the longest time to realise that you don't technically need your interior mirror. Like
mhm.
it's mainly obviously if you've got their two side mirrors, then they're like essential. But you don't, because obviously how do van drivers do it? You know,
Yeah.
so because they don't have one. What's the worst thing that's happened driving to a gig?
Ooh.
For
There's
me,
a question.
right, I'll set you up.
Okay.
I'll give you my story. I learned the hard way of why not to put your heavy hardware bag in the boot, because after this incident, I always put my hardware bag in across my back seat
Mhm.
if possible. But having it in the boot means that it's past all the wheels, so it's not in the center of the car. It's now all that weight is at the back of the car.
Mhm.
So if you go over a pothole or a really bad bump, like all that weight's going to shift right down. And so, in fact, was this on the way to a gig? I can't remember, but either way, I had my hardware bag in the boot and I was on the motorway, and then do you know that feeling as if like your car's slowing down,
Mhm.
but you're like you can see the speedometer still saying 50, but you feel like you're
Mhm.
like in too high a gear or too
Mhm.
low a gear. It was like that, and I was on the motorway, and one of my back tires had blew out because of all the weight. Because I think I went over a bump in the road, and then all of a sudden I just felt this. I
Oh no.
was like, ah!
That's not cool.
No, it
at
was
all.
quite scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think there was a photo, or there used to be a photo on my Instagram of the wheel, and it was just like unrecognizable.
Wow.
Pretty wrecked.
I've gotten lost, or the guy who was driving the van has gotten lost. That's happened.
Mhm.
But I don't think anything major.
Mhm.
I'm too square and organised
Yeah.
for that to be a thing. So there's been no real disasters. I have forgotten my aux cable to play music through the system, and
oh no.
the first dance has been an iPod request.
Oh no.
So thankfully, it was a song that we had played the week before,
Mhm.
and the guitarist still had charts in his case.
Okay.
So we played it for them.
Oh, okay. Were they all cool with that?
Yeah,
or-
they were more pissed off that we were really late because we got lost. It was the same night,
Oh no.
so we got lost on the way to the gig. And then as we were setting up, I realised I didn't have the cable to connect iPod to the mixer. So
I bet
they
every
were
gig-
not outwardly angry. They just complained later, which is fair enough. you
Yeah.
know. But I mean, all told though, we were set up in like no time at all.
Mhm.
So it wasn't as bad as it could have been.
Yeah.
Could have been real bad, man.
I'll bet every gig since that you've always had a spare aux cable in the desk.
Yeah, I carry one. I carry two now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I carry two.
There's
Absolutely.
always, like, if you ever see someone with spares of stuff, it's because something has went wrong to
Yeah.
require them to carry spares of stuff.
I've had a friend get stuck in a ditch on the way home from a gig
Oh no.
at like 1 a.m.
Oh no.
He took the wrong turning and ended up in a ditch.
How did he manage that?
Don't ask. Yeah, there's there's nothing but blanket mania for that. Like
Oh,
it
yeah.
wasn't an accident. Sat nav told him to go right and he went left. It wasn't like and he ended up in a ditch and the sound engineer had to tow him out on the way home.
Oh no.
Because thankfully he was still packing up
Mhm.
because we were all home.
Yeah. You were all gone.
Yeah. And at the time I didn't drive, so it wasn't like I
Yeah.
could go back and help him. And
Yeah, you would have been less than useless in that situation.
and the people that did have wheels didn't want to go back and help him.
That's brutal.
It was pretty savage.
Yeah.
Like, we're just gonna leave this guy straight. They're like, well, we're home now. Like,
What do you want me
dude,
to
like,
do?
it's not cool, bro. But
Where was it? Do you
Loch
remember?
Lomond,
Oh man,
yeah, in the middle of nowhere.
that's grim.
And it was like There was no streetlights. It was like the middle of nowhere. Oh, no. You know.
I remember late last year, I want to say, was it November time?
Uh-huh.
I was playing a gig through in Edinburgh, a wedding, and it was an early finish. So we finished at like 11:30. In fact, no, 10:30. Sorry. So we're like, great. So took our time packing up a little bit. Basically got everything back in the car by 11 o'clock. And turned my car on, and it just did that clicking sound. Battery died. So thankfully one of the other boys in the band was still there to give it a jump start, but it was like, I've never jump started a car before, so I didn't realise it was like you had to leave it on there for like half an hour to at least give the battery a chance to charge. I thought it was instant.
Oh, that was, I wouldn't have known that.
Oh, there you go. So, because I phoned the RAC, and the guy was like, "Oh, how long did it?" Like, I was like, "I've tried to jump start it, and it's not doing anything." And he's like, "How long did you leave it on the car for?" And I was like, 2 minutes. And he was like, "Bro, would you leave your phone just charging for 2 minutes and expect it to be fully charged?" And I was like, no. And he's like, "So why would you think a car would be any different?" And I was like, "Oh, okay."
But doesn't the battery charge when you're driving?
It does, so yeah. But,
So all you really needed to do is start.
well, but yeah, okay, yeah.
So
but,
that I see where you're coming from, because I would that would have been my answer to him.
yeah, that's what I thought, because I tried to start it and it just clicked.
Cue the comments. Folk are just like that. No, that's not how it works.
My drum podcast didn't have enough accurate car chat.
Unfollow.
But yeah, that was pretty grim. So
I did. One night I forgot we were to play till 1, and we played all our good songs,
oh no.
and I was just wrapping up, and the guy's like, the groom came up, was like, "You're booked till 1." I'm like, "Are you sure?" And he's like, "Well, yeah, I have." You know,
I'm the groom. I say so.
It cost me more money, and I went back through and looked. I was like, and Stevie, our guitarist, bless him, I love him dearly. But you know that way you've had one of those nights where he's playing the last 5 songs with a guitar off one shoulder, like he's all ready to put it away, and the look he gave me was just like he wasn't happy.
No.
Funny though. Funny. So
I bet Mark in your band was still just like,
yeah,
cool. Yeah.
All like the last hour, all the reserve songs came out. But I mean, we were like, Loch Lomond's coming.
Yeah.
Like it was like 5 to 12.
Oh,
like,
no.
Just as well, he come up. It was an uncomfortable conversation.
But the thing is, he must have felt that you were getting to that.
Well, no, Gail was announcing it.
Oh no, no!
It was like, "Get your bride and groom ready," and he's like, "Dude, you've got another hour to go." And I'm like, "What?" And they're like,
"Oh,
no."
He's like, "Oh yeah, of course, yeah,
absolutely. I made money, big
man." Just making sure you were paying attention.
Got you.
Gotcha.
But I haven't had any like major car trouble, thankfully.
Oh my god, that was weird.
So
y'all see that?
So our old guitarist was
Oh, no.
sorry, this story better be worth it. Was travelling home with the bass guitarist, and I don't know what happened. I don't know how this happened, but like the bass guitarist's phone rang, and it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. It's pitch black, and he must have swiped up, and he hit his light, and just shone his light right in the guitarist. He's like, "What are you doing, man?" He's like, and he's speaking. The bass player's pissed himself laughing. He thinks this is the funniest thing ever. And Pete can't. He's like, "I can't see," which could have been an actual disaster.
Oh, that could have been, yeah. Oh man.
But the bassist laughed about it for like 15 minutes afterwards, man. Oh, that was great. Oh, that was funny.
Oh my god.
Oh,
I remember one night with one of the wedding bands I dated for, because I had to leave here, so I wasn't able to drive up with the rest of the guys. But we were staying in, because it was quite far away. I think it was like 2.5 hours away. We were staying in like a like accommodation, but it was like a kind of a hire your own kind of cottage type vibe. Like the guy who runs band, Dave, like he was just like, let's get somewhere nice to kind of stay, because because it's a long drive, blah blah blah. But it was the middle of winter, so he was like, would you be able to go up and get the keys for the accommodation on the way up? Because like I think they were late leaving, or I was late leaving, or something happened, I can't remember, but I was in charge of getting the keys for the accommodation. And I just remember like it was like literally in the middle of nowhere, this accommodation, and it was like a cottage vibe, so the key for it was underneath the doormat,
right.
but like it's night. It's not late at night, but it's super super dark, and literally the only lights are my headlights in the car. So like I drive up and I drive past I drive past the cottage and like turn into the big car park on the right. But as soon as I turn off my lights in my car, there's just pitch black.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is like something at the Twilight Zone, like or some crazy shit's gonna happen here.
Absolutely.
So I was purely like, I phoned the guys and I was like shaking. I was like, it's pretty dark. I'm just gonna go get the keys now. Would you guys mind staying on the phone?
I'll hold my hand.
Hold my hand. It was like I felt like what would be the start of a Treehouse of Horror episode from The Simpsons,
or every other horror movie. You know, it's pitch black.
Don't look at the light.
Yeah, but I don't think we've had any crazy. We've driven home in blizzards and stuff. It's taken us hours to get home.
Oh yeah.
Hours and hours and hours up in the north of Scotland. Is not a fun place to drive.
No.
So yeah, I've had nothing kind of crazy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
The A9's a tough one because it's all 40 roadworks at the moment, and it's average cameras everywhere. So
plus people drive like maniacs on that road as well.
Yeah, they do. So I just keep in the left lane and do as I'm told on that road.
Yeah.
I don't try and do anything silly. No,
it's just totally not worth it.
No, so no, nothing major, no disasters. I'm afraid I'm really square like that. Like I don't leave anything to chance.
Except for forgetting that you're playing for an extra hour and forgetting an aux cable.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah. Shut up.
Shut up.
I don't leave anything to chance anymore. I have had crazy people trying to play my drums and stuff. I've had all that, you know.
There's always someone who wants to just be like,
guys,
I used to play drums when I was like 14.
Groom jumped on the stage and slipped and snapped a cable out the back of a monitor, like where the actual metal part and the cable part goes in. He took it clean, he sheared it clean right off.
Whoa.
And if he wasn't careful, man, he'd have hit his face on the way down because he slipped off the stage.
Yeah.
So you're having to have a conversation with people about if he doesn't stop this, we're out here.
Yeah.
Because
that's not cool.
No, it's not. Like, what other job could someone imagine? Worked in a desk job, right? You worked in an office. You did work in an office.
Yep.
Imagine someone come in drunk and like tried to take your computer or jump on you just like, get him out of here, man. Like,
actually, that was just more of a normal day, to be honest. That was Larry.
Yeah, every single day. But you know what I mean? Like, there's no other job where that's acceptable.
Yeah.
You know, so it shouldn't be acceptable doing that job.
It's like going to a dentist and being like, "Oh, I wanted to be a dentist. Is this a drill?" Yeah.
Just
how hard can it be?
Yeah, I've had some silly stuff like that. You know. People nearly fighting and things, but that's just people.
Yeah.
So, but no, not that I can think of. No disasters, but hey.
Some of the funny stuff I saw at a wedding was again doing a dep gig, and the best man, because it's always the best man, utterly scooped. Like right. I mean, like beyond drunk. Like everyone there was like that natural lull in the night. Do you know that natural lull where like most people leave the dance floor, but there's just this one dude who just will not leave no matter what. And he was like, we were playing. I can't even remember what song we're playing, but we're playing away, and he just has this unbroken, like no reaction stare to the singer of the band, the girl, and he's just looking at her like deadpan, looking at her. And then all of a sudden his hands move up.
Oh no!
And he starts unbuttoning his shirt, doesn't he? Right.
Of course he does.
But of course we're still playing away, right? And I'm watching this, going like, what is this guy doing? And then he decides to stop unbuttoning his shirt. Like he gets to about his abdomen.
Right.
And then next thing his hands go towards the belt.
Oh.
Right. And I'm not joking, man.
My
like
friend.
Like he's married. This guy was married. And I know that because as soon as he depantsed himself to the band and was helicoptering, his wife came sprinting over, and she was like, "Right, up the road now!" Like he gets sent home.
That happened to a guy that was playing. We were playing, and a guy did that. He started swinging his shirt off and trying to grab the mic, and Gail had just fallen pregnant.
Oh no, man! Nah.
So I was like, how quickly can I get myself off of a drum kit here? So we actually had to end up telling the guys in the band really, really early that she was pregnant because in case that happened again.
Yeah.
Because I was like, guys, I can't get to her quick enough. So I need you to be careful and sort of be on guard.
Out, yeah.
Thankfully, no one was, he got swiftly removed and he got put into a taxi. Well, he got forcibly put into a taxi because he didn't want to go. Turned out that the bride's dad was a prison officer.
Oh,
So homeboy went into the taxi.
yeah. he was.
And like his
No
wife,
choice.
his wife was like the childhood neighbour of the groom. They'd grown up together, so all of a sudden he's put his wife in this really weird, like at 8:15, his shirt's off, throwing it around. You know,
Ah,
like, whoa, man, like you've had a fun day.
yeah.
You know, so
And like nights like that are fun, but like it's when they get too far like that.
yeah, when it starts to become dangerous,
Oh yeah, yeah.
you know, because you know if you fall
Mm-hmm.
and crack your head on a monitor, or
Yeah.
you know you have an accident, or you know, God heaven, like touch wood, and you fall into someone who's pregnant who then falls through a drum kit, you know, that's not going to end well for you, my friend. You know,
No.
you're going to jail.
Mhm.
You know, so yeah, it's a funny world out there. I'm sure there's tons of those stories. You know,
Yeah.
tons and tons of those stories.
We should. I think it would be quite interesting to like, if there was a way we could.
Just get folk to email in stories.
Yeah, like or like even like have if there's a way of we can get people to like record snippets of their stories or record a story and put like a podcast together of like
Yeah,
gig stories. I think that'd
Yeah.
be quite interesting.
yeah, some kind of crazy stuff.
Mhm.
You know, it's funny. It's never really. Well, I say that. I mean, I was going to say it's never really the playing, but sometimes it's the playing. We needed a bass step one night, and we'd asked this guy who'd done it before.
Mhm.
I was like, I can't. I'm busy, but I'll send you one of my students. Young kid, 19, great, absolutely amazing,
Mhm.
great player. Like, oh, go. Like, will he be fine? Yeah, he'll be absolutely fine, no problem. So this kid turns up,
Mhm.
and it transpired very quickly that he didn't have an amplifier.
Oh no.
So he borrowed one from a rehearsal room, and I'm not kidding you on when I tell you it was about that size from the floor.
Whoa.
It was one of, you know, like Berkeley, these huge bass
Yeah,
cabinets.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
one of them,
Whoa.
and it didn't work.
Oh,
But he only
great.
discovered that when he tried to plug his bass in,
Oh,
and it
good.
wouldn't work. So he had, I can never get this right. It was either an active or a passive bass.
Mhm.
But the only way in the end for us to let him be heard was we plugged him directly into the system.
Mhm.
But I didn't have a DI box,
Right.
so it was all. When the minute he stopped playing, it was so like mute the channel between every
no.
single song.
Oh god. Oh god.
Plus, he couldn't play the bass, man. It's Boy rocks on up with a 6-string fretless to play this pub. His bass is the size of him, man. The body on it's massive, and his intonation's awful because he's got no frets, so he can't quite. He hasn't played for a while. It transpired as well, and he can't quite pitch it. He can't quite put his finger where it should go.
He's
And he
just
doesn't
missing the note
know.
by a
He's
fraction.
always flat and always sharp, you know. And he doesn't know what a 12-bar blue is. As he was,
Yeah.
we were playing Johnny Be Good, and he was playing 8 bars and then going back to the beginning.
I shouldn't laugh, man.
the
That's
guitarist
terrible.
is shit. We're going, mute him. Like, oh man, this is really. But it's the only time in my life where I've come this close to sending someone home.
Wow. On a
After,
gig.
aye, and it was a shame because as soon as he started, he was sweating bullets and he knew he was out of place.
Yeah.
He was out of shape. His whole family turned up to watch him play, and it was a car crash, man. I ended up just pulling him out, and we played as a trio, but with a 4th member on the stage. It was that bad, man. Like
Wow.
Stevie just put his Octaver on, and you know,
Yeah.
like, oh, this is grim. You know,
I mean, really, whose fault is that? Because, you know.
I mean, it's a hybrid affair to me.
yeah.
Like, don't take a gig if you can't do it,
Yeah.
and don't put someone in a gig that's not up
That
to
they
it.
know they can't do.
Aye.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a combination there.
I would have loved to have seen loved to have been a fly on the wall for the phone call between the guy that you had originally asked and the guy that he got in. Like just
After
like,
the gig.
no, like
right,
before
before
it.
the-
Like
right.
just like, hey man, I really need you to help me out. I know you've not played bass in 6 months, but
He's just like 19 years old and just like trousers hanging off his arse and all that, you know, just like,
fresh, yeah.
as
As green as it gets.
you're right out of Limp Bizkit, son, you know, like,
yeah, chocolate starfish.
just not ready, you know, and you can't get angry at people like that, man, it's a shame.
Yeah.
It's like, he's not got the wherewithal to just busk it and play.
Yeah.
You know, that's where experience really lends a hand where you can, like, how many gigs have you done and you don't know the song
Oh,
and you just
loads.
play though?
You just play it.
Aye,
yeah.
it's not like somebody count me off, count the song off, tell me when to stop, tell me when to start, tell me when to finish,
Yeah.
and we'll just get through it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a lot. I don't. Been talking about this week. Is that something that's missing from the way people learn to play the drums?
I mean, I guess so. I think. I mean, obviously, given the state of what we're in right now, the world, like gigging isn't really a thing. But no, I think it's been missing for a while. I think people just people are too. What's the best way to describe this? I think a lot of people these days learn too much about drumming from books in inverted commas,
Right.
or like they learn so much from like videos on the internet that are transcribed and they have a click accompanying it with all that. So when people learn how to play the drums, they think that's what all it is. And I think for people like that to then just be presented in a situation of let's just jam, it's very uncomfortable for them. It's the same. I can only relate it to. Imagine if you were like I knew of a keyboard player who, if you took the music away from him, he didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah, I saw a lot of that at college.
Yeah.
I think that happens more so in the classical world. Like they're literally corpse.
Yeah.
Like, what do I do? What do you mean just play?
Yeah.
I've never understood it.
I've never understood it either. I think you and I have had a very similar upbringing in that way, where we've just played.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
and so when the concept of someone not being able to just play, it's like it's quite alien.
Yeah.
You know, it's very very alien. In fact, actually, I find it very difficult to understand it. Like, if you sit someone down and just play.
I got
and
to
then
see a lot
make
of it.
Frozen.
When I was still at uni, we used to play for all the auditionees. So, you know, you would do a full day of auditions I would play for all the other instrumentalists that weren't drummers. You know, so these people would turn up, and I've seen it on a few occasions where they've brought sheet music in, and you know, the whole thing with jazz music, after the melody's out the road, you're supposed to be soloing for a wee while over the chords, and people playing a written solo, and then when the audition, whoever's running the audition takes the music away, these people can't play.
Yeah.
They can't improvise. Like, why do you want to do a jazz degree if you don't know how to improvise? You know,
Yeah.
it's very, very.
Sure, that's what it's all about.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, but they've just been taught to read it. You know, they've been taught that that's what music is.
Yeah.
You know, it's fascinating to me. I mean, centuries ago, when there wasn't any paper to write on, you would have just played music.
Yeah.
You know, people would have just played rhythms and, you know, the songs to make it rain and all that kind of stuff, you know. So that's kind of where it all comes from, really. It doesn't come from being written down. You know, jazz music doesn't even come from being written down.
Yeah.
They called it the oral tradition. It was passed on. You know, you were taught to play it by someone else, not necessarily about having it written down. It wasn't until arrangers came along, I think, if I'm right with my history, that writing music for that kind of genre was even a thing. You know, obviously, you know, when jazz music came along, there was tons and tons and tons of written music. Composition had been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, but within that genre, it was very different. You know, it wasn't necessarily written down. You know.
Do you think there's like a blame element to that? Do you think like kids are, well, not kids, I say kids, but just like younger musicians are just kind of like, this is the world that they've grown up in, where things like that are so readily available? Like when you and I were a bit younger, obviously I know I'm younger than you, but certainly when I was young and having to learn music, music books, firstly, didn't interest me, but I kind of got a kick out of listening to a song and working it out for myself.
Yeah, me too. I don't know that it's a blame thing. I think if you were to blame anybody, if it was anyone's fault, to invert those commas, that's probably the teachers. There's no such thing as a bad student, I don't think.
Yeah.
You know, and in some respects it could be related to how the teacher is learned. So if you've been a classical percussionist who happens to play drums really well, and you're teaching drums, well, you've always come from that classical environment. So there's always been a score, there's always been a tempo marking, there's always been a form. There's never just been sit down and play. But, you know, if I didn't always have access to a decent stereo, or like, you know, if you only got play-alongs once a month when the magazine came out and you bought it and you bought the CD, if it even had a CD at that time,
Yeah.
because Modern Drummer didn't ever have a CD.
Mhm.
Rhythm did for years and years and years, the Rhythm play-along.
Yeah,
So,
that's right.
you know, if your CD player didn't jump because of the vibrations of the bass drum
Mhm.
playing, you could put your headphones on and play along. But once you'd played it to death,
Mhm.
you just play something else, or you
Yeah.
know, or once you got bored of playing music, you just play the drums.
Mhm.
You know, but I don't know. It's just always been. It's kind of like playing football, I guess. When I was a kid, we did a lot of that, and you don't worry about that you don't play for a team, or you know, you've got you know, we all know what the rules are. We've got a ball and jumpers for goalposts and all that.
Yeah,
You just get on with it.
Yeah, you just.
It's the same thing as playing hunts or playing tig or playing
Mhm.
all
You-
these games you
your
did as a kid.
brain
Yeah,
ties joins
that
the
whole
dots.
it continues the same way. So you just get a set of drumsticks, you sit down and you just play something. You
Mhm.
typically it's a rock beat,
Mhm.
or for me typically it was a rock beat, or
Mhm.
you know, you would try and work a filling out like you'd heard and
Yeah.
all that stuff. You know, so
Uh-huh.
don't know. There's a blame thing, no.
No. It was more just thinking of just the way of the world right now.
Yeah.
You know, like just like like when you look at a Drumeo video, it's got 9 times out of 10, it's got notation, it's got a BP, it's got a click track, it's got
Mhm.
a tempo marking, it's got all that stuff. So, which is great, and I kind of wish that existed when I was a little bit younger as well, because you literally see everything written out
Mhm.
exactly the way it is played and how to learn it. But when I was growing up playing music, it was just I was never given any sheet music. I was never presented with
yeah.
any sheet music. It was just like, I'll show you how to play this, learn how to do it. And I think that's so valuable. That's so valuable because
Yeah, I mean, like I've spoken about this before. I think I got to play in the school orchestra, so I wasn't given a chart because most of the music we played didn't necessarily have a drum score.
yeah,
There wasn't any music to give me.
yeah,
You want to play,
mm-hmm.
figure it out.
Exactly.
You know?
I don't know if you were the same as me, but when I was younger, I used to do a lot of air drumming in the house because drums were too loud for my house,
Yeah, they were too loud for mine too.
and so my drum kit would be literally my drum throne, my bed, and pillows.
Yeah,
that was
really
for
common.
years. That was
Mhm.
my drum. That was my rig. So like just working out how to play stuff. Like I was a huge fan of like Paramore, Fall Out Boy, all
Mhm.
those kind of bands. And granted, a lot of those bands are for the same genre, but just being able to work out how to play those parts just from listening to it, and then even doing your own thing on top of that. Like just like so, I would have like my thickest pillow as my snare drum, and my
Mhm.
lightest pillow as my ride cymbal, and I would
Mhm.
just be beating the hell out of it. But
Mhm.
trying to do my own thing with it as well a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Even if it's only imaginary in my head.
Mhm.
So that's why when it comes to the concept of sitting someone down who's maybe come from that classical background or just like they've been taught to just play a certain way without, it's kind of harkens back to what we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, or was it last week, about how if you're so used to your drum kit being set up a certain way
Hmm.
and you then are presented with a situation where something's not how you perceive it, it's like, what do I do?
Hmm.
You know, it's like the performance version of that.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think it also depends. Well, I mean, somebody will prove me wrong, but what I was going to say is it depends on what music you listen to, because I can't imagine walking into a Paramore rehearsal and asking for the chart.
No, can you imagine that?
No,
Get
of course
outta
not,
here.
because it's just not. Doesn't fit the vibe.
Yeah.
It doesn't fit anything. You know. You end up dipping for Blink.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like Gil Sharon dipped for +44, I think, or Blink or something.
Mm-hmm.
He had to learn all this music on a flight. You know, same. It's a
Yeah.
common story.
Big Dave.
Aye,
had to
common
learn stuff,
story.
you
I
know?
can't imagine Big Dave walking into a rehearsal with a union being like, "Oh, do you have the chart, lads?"
Yeah.
It's like, do one,
Yeah.
beat it. You know, you're not for us.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know.
So it's really interesting. It's just interesting to see the way younger players or like just younger players or whatever sitting down and just being like totally aghast at like, I've not got anything to reference here. I just
Yeah.
need to just play.
Yeah.
And getting over that hurdle, like you can actually see the strain that it's causing them. It's
Yeah.
like, you don't get it.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with being like that, but I think just being able to just freeform and just, you know.
Well, I think it's a skill. If you want to be a contender, if you want to go out there and do this for a living, then it's
Mhm.
certainly a skill you need to have.
Mm-hmm.
I think you need to have both skills. I think you need to be able to read, and you also need to be able to just play.
Yeah.
You know, because if you want to be any kind of, if there is such a thing as freelance work in the future, if you want to do it, session work, whatever that looks like, you kind of have to be able to read too, if you know, if that's what the gig calls for, you know.
Yeah, totally. It's striking the right balance, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just another skill set. If you think about music being a language, playing is like talking.
Yeah.
You can talk to anyone. You know, when you meet someone for the first time, there's no, like, you don't walk up and be like, right, what's our topic?
Yeah. Oh, totally.
And how long do we have? You know, you just talk to someone. How's it going, man? You know, I'm Chris. You know, so on, so forth, and then a conversation that happens. It's either, you know, if someone's not very practiced at it, that could be quite a stunted conversation, and that's the person that's never had the practice of having conversations with people, or the person that can't play music without a chart or something, you know. So, but you also need to be able to read the paper. Yeah. You know, so
sure.
You know, it's still.
So for maybe younger players who are like this, or maybe anyone who's listening to this, who maybe is like listening to think, oh man, that's me, like I struggle to improvise with other musicians, what help or what advice would you give them for getting out of that?
Okay, good question, and I'll have to consider this when I answer, so if it takes me a while, I'm sorry. The first thing I would probably get them to do is just try it. You know, if I was to try and teach this, just get them to sit down and play the first thing that comes to their head. It doesn't matter what that is. And if they can't think of something, right, okay, let's find a track of music that starts with the drums. You know, so there's a drum intro up the top. No other music, Billie Jean or something, like, and then just let them hear how that could sound. Look, this guy's playing, or this girl is playing without any music right now. So I just want you to do that. Can you do that? And if they can, then great, we'll move it forward from there. If they can't, well, you just get them to start. Well, what's the first thing you think you should hit on the drums? If we're playing a song, what's the first thing you think you should hit? Probably the bass drum and the crash for beat one, or the bass drum and the hi-hats. Okay, well, what comes next? How do you play just a normal beat? You know, so, because outside of, you know, if anybody's taught someone to play a rock beat, if you're a drum teacher, it's kind of important. Yep. You know, so, you know, you just try and coax that out of them. I've had to do this. I actually have had to teach this with things like soloing before, because I've taught people that have gone on to audition for courses and that kind of thing, and they've come to me and be like, I don't know how to solo, and I need to solo. I need to play a solo, and it depends. A lot of that depends on the context. So if it's a jazz tune, you kind of typically have to work out if they're soloing over the form or over a vamp. Do you know what those things are?
I think so, yeah.
Right, so for those of you that don't, a vamp is just a phrase that's repeated round and round and round. So the rest of the band would play that phrase and you would solo round about it, right? So maybe bass and the guitar and the piano or something would just play this thing round and round, and you would get to solo. And you see this a lot in gospel chops videos and all that kind of stuff. There'll be some kind of music that people are playing over. That's typically a vamp. Soloing over the form is when you solo without, you typically will solo without any other people playing, and you will have to keep the form of the song in your head, so the number of bars. So if it's a blues, that's 12 bars. So how many times around are you going to play that in your head? And you have to know that. You have to know how many times you've played the form, because the band have to come in at the right time. Yeah. It gets quite challenging, especially when you have to do it in like 5 or 7, something like that, you know. So the first thing I would get people to do is to, if they don't know how to sort a form out, is to create a form. So A, B, A, right? So A is the first figure. So here's your A figure, right? So play that twice. 1, 2, 3, and. Right? And then you would play something different. So. Get the idea? So they've created this, and they'll just, every time they play the first 2 A's, they vary it slightly, or maybe every time they play B, they vary it slightly, until they've got enough language and enough ideas in their head to go away and do it on their own, you
Right.
know. So it can take years to get that, like years and years and years and years of playing, you know. Or if like I would used to have to do things like when I played in the brass band, there might be 4 bars of drum solo.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to, you know, come up with something on your own for 4 bars, but it has
Yeah.
to make sense. It can't just be wild and out of tempo or out of time, which I've seen a bunch of stuff I've done, you know,
Yeah.
had to get that right.
It has to serve the music.
Absolutely, you know, so it could be like literally the simplest thing you've ever heard in your life. Like 4 times
Yeah.
and you're done, you know,
Yeah.
or just a variant of that,
Yeah.
you know.
Because I've found in those situations that the rookie error that I've encountered in those situations is to try and play a fill that you're still trying to learn
Mm-hmm.
because it sounds rad, and
Yeah,
it probably does sound rad when the person teaching you how to play that fill knows how to play it. But you still learning it do not know how to play it, so
Yeah.
maybe don't throw it in.
No, if you are popped in that position, because it's happened to me on gigs before.
Oh really?
Playing a Cayley, playing like a Strip the Willow with an accordion player and a guitarist, and you're playing it like a million miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And the accordion just turned, and there's like drum solo, bang.
Yep.
And the two of them stopped playing, and I'm like, okay.
Yep.
You've got to keep the dance floor moving,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got to play a drum solo that kind of serves the music at a ridiculous tempo like that.
Yep.
So,
No warning.
no, what's the first thing you do? Just keep the bass drum going.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, dum,
Yep.
So if you're at that tempo, so people can still dance,
Mm-hmm.
because and it's not going to be something bonkers. It's got to be something that can be, that's always ending in 1. You're not really syncopating it too much, because people are still trying to dance. The
Yep.
dance is still going, and they're still calling the dance while
Yep.
you're soloing and all
Mhm.
that stuff. So it's like playing all the really simple drum fills that you know and connecting them together.
Mm-hmm.
That tends to be a bit more sensible and a
Yeah.
bit more musical, actually.
And more often than not, really effective
Yeah, absolutely.
because
you know,
it's simple.
yeah, absolutely. But it's just having enough wherewithal to do things like, okay, the dance floor's still going. This isn't about the drums. This is actually about the experience.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's why things like Wipeout works.
Yeah.
You know, because like you could literally play Wipeout
Mm-hmm.
at the right tempo. You know,
Yeah.
and people would get it. You know,
Mhm.
you know, and the bass drum could still be going.
Yeah.
You could still keep the floor going. You know, things like that. You know.
Yeah.
Or like if you listen to sort of old school Buddy Rich, when he's not going too fast and he's playing the bass drum and he's doing all that snare drum stuff that's not super fast yet, it's not
Mhm.
super fast rolls.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff all works, man. That stuff's all great for all that, you know. So
Mhm.
it's listening to those old school guys that had to do it,
Yeah.
you know.
It's really interesting.
Find records with it on it. Find albums, you know. Go back and listen to older players
Mm-hmm.
that aren't playing stuff that you don't understand. If you don't understand it, there's no point. You'll get to that.
Yeah.
You'll evolve your ears. You need to learn to hear it, and you need to learn to understand what's going on. So listen to simpler stuff
Mm-hmm.
first,
Yeah.
if you want to get into it. You
Yeah.
know, don't worry about all the mental burly stuff. That's
Mhm.
only really for me. That stuff's only if there's a sitting audience,
Mm-hmm.
if there's a dancing audience, or a standing audience. Those are different things. You know, you'll see it if you ever went to see Slipknot,
Mm-hmm.
Joey going upside down and all
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
It's all really what's the word I want? Tangible. You kind of get it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not too mental.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not good,
Uh-huh, yeah.
but the audience will get it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not like it's not blown too far over people's heads.
Yeah.
You know.
I think that's just when you say that, like, it's quite funny when you watch like a younger player or like a drummer who's put in that position of they're like, right, solo
Mhm.
now. It's like they instinctively think they play for the imaginary drummers in the room.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is they'll try and play all their fanciest licks and they'll try and play all their flashiest stuff because they think it impresses the audience.
Absolutely, I've been guilty of that.
Of course, me too. We all
Yeah,
are.
yeah.
Absolutely, and there's nothing wrong with it. But what's just really interesting about it is if you ever get the opportunity to listen back to it, it's like what you think sounds really amazing and flashy could just sound like a rabble, and
Ca-
it doesn't serve anything.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. Carter Beauford's really great for it. You should listen to him. There's a Dave Matthews Band song called Two Step
Mhm.
from the album Crash, and typically they'll let him blow over that
Mhm.
when they play it live, and it's always kind of roughly the same kind of idea. And there's a
Mhm.
figure he plays. He plays this like it's called a herta. It's a
Mhm.
rudiment he plays, and he plays it really quickly between the snare and the toms. But the band are still playing the vamp, and it goes on for ages.
Mhm.
That's really great to watch because it's inclusive, and it starts really kind of sparsely
Mhm.
because the song will have played for a while. They've played most of the song, and then it'll get into the breakdown bit where they know Carter's going to go mental.
Yeah.
But he'll build it up and build it up, and by the time it breaks
Mhm.
back into the band coming in, he's wound the crowd right up.
Yeah.
It's a total showpiece. It's really great to go
Yeah.
and see, man. If you've never seen them live, you should check them out.
Mhm.
Check
I
it
think
out
I
on
will.
YouTube. I'll find a decent YouTube clip.
Uh-huh.
It goes on, man. Like the song ends up being about 20 minutes long.
Wow.
Yeah, they're a mad jam band for all that stuff.
Yeah.
But the payoff is some sweet drum solo action.
Yeah.
You know, he's great for
Mhm.
all that stuff. You know, and it's like it's kind of like the same thing they did with Buddy Rich, and that a lot of people think that Buddy played really ferociously every night, but typically, from what I understand anyway, is per concert he would take one solo,
Mhm.
and it would be amazing.
Yeah.
But then the rest of it would all be inside and just playing for the band and playing the chart, you know.
Yeah.
But there would be one solo thing a night, which would be the one where they just let him.
The showpiece.
It's
yeah.
like that's exactly it. It's the
Mhm.
showpiece. The Carter's like that. They'll give him a showpiece because he's amazing,
Yeah.
and that kit's huge, and
Yeah.
it's part of going to see that band, you know, because they've all
Exactly.
got to play. The fiddle player gets to play, and the guitarist gets to play, and all that saxophone player.
I guess that's kind of the whole, like, if you go and see any band that are of a level, like there is always a moment where it builds to where all of a sudden the drummer gets a moment to shine. You know?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
if it wouldn't be special if every moment in every song was like that. This is why I find it really funny watching some drum covers sometimes, because it's just like every possible moment to bust out an amazing chop from
Yeah.
a young player. They use it
Yeah.
to the point where they've not even played a groove.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? And it's like, imagine if your whole band career was like that. It just
That would
wouldn't be interesting.
I was going to say it would be really boring.
Yeah, exactly.
Because after a while, there's just nothing left to be said.
Yeah,
You know, there's no room, and there's no music. Actually,
yeah,
I think people forget about that. There should be music somewhere.
yeah. It's
Um,
why all these amazing players. This is why it's quite funny. You should actually, for a laugh, right? You should like just pick a drummer. Doesn't
Mhm.
matter who it is. Say Chris Coleman, for example. Like, you just look at like if any solo video he's got online, look at it. Because the second he starts playing a groove, it's like oh my god, it's like, oh, what happened to Chris Coleman? He used to be chops. He used to be amazing.
He's a musician though.
Exactly. That's
You
what I'm
know.
getting at. So it's like just players who aren't in that wherewithal in their mind to separate the two. Of
Yeah.
like, oh wait a minute, these guys have got to that level. Firstly, because they're amazing players, but also because they get it. You know,
Absolutely.
They've been able to adapt to situations. They also get that like it's not about them.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like it's funny when you see like, for example, Chris Coleman, he plays now with Beck.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny if you watch like footage from a Beck concert, because it's just like, oh, these guys have no idea who their drummer is. Like, he's phenomenal. And it's like, of course they know exactly who he is. That's why he got the gig.
Yeah.
But if he was Chris Coleman on that gig all the time, if he was the drummer, you know what I mean, that we all know him, what he can do,
Yeah.
then he wouldn't be on that gig for very long.
Absolutely.
You know?
He's talked about that actually. He's talked about going into gigs and people have the artist has had this sort of expectation of him
Mm-hmm.
before he's even played a tune, like he's going to just blow all over my music,
Mm-hmm.
and he's just like playing pocket,
Yeah.
just like, hey man, I'm just here to play some
So I'm just
pocket.
in my lane.
Yeah. And it tends to really surprise people
Mm-hmm.
because they expect all that solo-y stuff,
Yeah.
and he just behaves and plays the music like he should, like
yeah.
what he's being paid for, you know. It's quite fascinating
Mm-hmm.
to talk to guys at his level
Mm-hmm.
about things like that, you know.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting. You know.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, especially by a guy like Chris who can just blow everyone's minds just
Yeah.
very quickly.
Some
you know.
guys earn it in the end. Guys like Vinny,
Mhm.
I think Vinny's earned the right to kind of be let go every night, and people do, like whatever artist he's with. You don't get a drummer like Vinny to put him in a cage,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Vinny Colaiuta, for
Yeah,
anyone who
yeah,
doesn't
Vinny
know who I'm
Colaiuta,
talking
and he is probably, for me, probably the most rhythmically gifted drummer
about. Mm-hmm.
in Western music, certainly on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
For me,
Yeah.
people can argue the toss all day. It's about my opinion on this one. I think Vinny is probably the greatest to ever do it.
Mm-hmm. What's the best Vinny story you've ever heard?
I mean, there's loads of lore.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how much of it's actually true, but there's a a cracking story apparently, where somebody knocks his door, and another drummer knocks his door, and he opens the door, and he's got a practice pad set up at the side of the door, and he's practicing talking to this guy on the doorstep. He's just talking to him on the doorstep, and he says, "Oh, I'm sorry, man. I've been really rude. Do you want a pad?" That's the old. I don't know if it's true. It's a story I've heard, but
What's the one you've told me about where he's like it involves sushi? I can't remember.
oh,
the
this
story.
is the thing, right? So this is the Zappa story,
right.
and this is true because Steve Vai tells this story.
Right. Okay.
So he's just got the Zappa gig,
Mm-hmm.
and he sits down at Terry Bozzio's kit,
Mm-hmm.
which has 2 bass drums on it and drums everywhere, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a really, really famous Zappa piece of music called The Black Page.
Mm-hmm.
It's a solo percussion piece, and it's really difficult. It's like a showpiece thing. And there's lots of rhythms over rhythms and polyrhythms and cross rhythms and all this stuff that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this piece of music that Vinny was given is called something like Mo and Herb's Vacation,
Mm-hmm.
and it's meant to be harder than The Black Page.
right.
So, to his left, I'll preface it by saying Vinny always pushes, he's got this habit of pushing his glasses up.
Mm-hmm.
So he pushes them up with his finger. And to his left, he has a music stand with the music on it. And to the left of that, there's a music stand with a plate of sushi on it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's playing this really dense, like floating 5s over 11s over 5s and all sorts of weird shit happening with his feet and his hands. And he's sight reading it. He's never seen it before.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets to the page turn. He turns the page. He pushes his glasses up and he grabs a bit of sushi and puts it in his mouth without dropping a beat. And like the whole room loses its shit because they're like, "Who is this alien, man?" Like, like Zappa's just like, "What, man?" And it's like Bozzio's out of there, and Stevie Vai's just like,
yeah.
I'll definitely find that video because Stevie Vai tells the story really well.
Yeah.
But that was when, like, it was stuff like that when Zappa realised who he had got, you know,
Yeah.
because when they did keep Joe's Garage,
Mm-hmm.
the album Joe's Garage, they went into the studio to record a single and stayed for a month because
Wow.
Zappa got an inkling of what Vinny could do.
Yeah.
You know, he kind of like, this guy's an alien, man. This guy can literally play anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and you know, Zappa's audition was notoriously difficult.
Yeah.
So much so that the lore of all that is that he wouldn't have even passed his own audition.
Wow.
It was so hard, and typically drummers would last anywhere between 6 and 10 seconds.
Whoa.
And there was a queue of them round the block
Mm-hmm.
to audition for this gig, and Vinny lasted a minute.
Wow.
So like he would like solo in 7. Okay, play me a song in 21.
Mm-hmm.
Play me this, and anything he threw at him, Vinny just played at him.
Mm-hmm.
Because he'd studied so much and he'd studied all these really difficult things already when he'd been studying with Gary Chaffee.
Mm-hmm.
So Zappa pulls him aside and he's like, "Look, man, I can pretty much say that I think the gig's yours, but there's a whole load of people here,
Mm-hmm.
so to be fair to them, I have to see them." So he sat through all these auditions while Vinny waited, and
Wow.
Vinny did the gig from there. You know,
That's pretty bonkers, isn't it?
aye, you know, that's just who Vinny is. You know, that's
Yeah.
he's kind of almost savant level. You know, but he can literally do anything. You
Mhm.
know, and will play. I mean, like he played on 10 Summoner's Tales, like the Sting album, and
Mm-hmm.
some really beautiful tunes. I think he plays on Fields of Gold. Sure, he plays on that song,
Mm-hmm.
which is like the simplest beat going, side stick. You know, hardly anything there.
Yeah.
And he plays on Keep It Greasy, which is in like 1916 and
Mhm.
all sorts of mentalness. You know, so he can do pretty much anything. I think in 1 year he did Megadeth's album and the Pussycat Dolls album. You
That's
know,
phenomenal.
and then went out and toured with Sting, and you know, just
He's that guy.
Aye, he's literally that guy. You know, how did you learn to play double pedal, Vinny? I put a bit of double pedal on the drum kit. You know,
Yeah.
I didn't go away and shed it. But he would also do things like, I've read all sort. Like I went down a whole. When forums were still a thing, when internet forums were still a thing, there was a forum called the House of Drumming. It was an American forum, and they were like the Vinny worshippers, and they would share all these interviews, and there's loads of clinic audio, like bootleg clinic audio and stuff that you could get, and he tells stories of like he would come home, he'd be at a session all day, and he would be getting home at 9 p.m. and he would be turning into his street and the phone would ring, so he would just put the car in reverse and go back and do another session and then finish the session and go home and practice all night and then wake up and do it all again. Like, he would practice so much through the night famously that half his bandmates had to go and wake him up and get him into the van to go and play gigs because he would sleep through it all. You know, there's all sorts of mental stories because he just always had drumsticks in his hand, or always has drumsticks in his hand. No doubt though people will call me out on some of it because I don't know if it's all right. So if, you know, but there's some amazing Vinny stories, you know, and he's kind of, that has won him the right to play stuff. You know, a lot of you kind of hire Vinny to be Vinny. You don't hire Vinny to be anybody else. Yeah, you know. There's really great footage of him playing. There's a club in LA called the Baked Potato, and there's this really great YouTube clip. And he comes in off the street. The band are all kind of warming up, and they start the tune, and he's still got his jacket on and this little carrier bag. You know, and he puts the bag down, takes his jacket off, picks up the drumsticks, and they're playing in 5, and he sits down and just starts tearing the song to bits. And inside like the first minute and a half, there's like 3 years of study. Wow. You know, just the stuff he comes away with, you know, amazing, absolutely amazing. You know. There's no dropped notes, there's no nothing. The technique's flawless, all of it, you know, it's incredible. I'll link some videos.
Yeah, please do. It was quite just interesting actually watching you talk about it.
Yeah.
Because obviously you can actually hear and see like how much of an influence.
Yeah, I think if people don't know who he is, they really need to go and do themselves a favour and check him out. You know, if you just look at his recording career, you know, some of the stuff he's done. And
it says a lot when, like, you know, guys like Todd Zuckerman are posting videos about.
Yeah, he's posted a couple of Vinny videos recently.
Yeah, and he's just like, man, like if you think I'm anything special, just.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Vinny's at like the top of everybody's list.
Yeah.
You know, Josh Freese was the ring bearer at his wedding when he was 12 years old.
That's mental.
Yeah, you should listen to Josh Freese did a podcast called I'd Hit That, and he talks a little bit about Vinny. And they're like best of friends. They have been for years. You know, so yeah, there's some pretty cool stuff going around, and some pretty cool Vinny footage. You know, he's got a thing about being filmed, man. He hates being filmed. Yeah. There's a Sting one, and you can see he spotted the guy in the front row filming Vinny. And he's like pulling faces at him and stuff. He's like, turn your camera off, man. Yeah. You know,
enjoy the music.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, Vinny.
Wow.
But he's a dude that can just play, man. He can just sit down and play. Yeah. You know, relating it back to what we were talking about. You know.
No, I think this has been a good conversation. A good
yeah.
Because it's, I mean, I don't know, man. I think everybody eventually will learn that. It's just being put in the right situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's not freaking out if someone asks you to do it. Yeah. It's just kind of, if it's not something you've done before, if you've never had to have that experience, then just let it unfold. You know, just like let the music tell you what's going on. 9 times out of 10, if you just take a step back from the drums and just get the band to play the song, you'll figure it out. Yeah. You know,
I think a lot of it's being comfortable as well. Like, I guess I was pretty fortunate because my first kind of quotation mark jam session, like all the people, they were really cool and they were just like, yeah, let's just play and just see what happens. So they were, I think for a lot of younger players who maybe aren't up for that kind of thing, like it's quite intimidating if you're playing with more experienced musicians. Like, oh man, and feel like they need to prove themselves, but then at the same time, it's just all that's not what it's really about. It's just about playing music.
I find if you could connect with people on a personal level, it makes the whole experience a lot easier. Yeah. So if you find that one person in the band that likes Marvel films, if you like Marvel films, and talk about that, and it makes the whole thing, you know, it makes everybody chill out a wee bit. Breathe. You know, absolutely, absolutely. So, yeah.
There we go.
Aye, we'll wrap it there.
Well, that was a podcast.
It was a podcast.
There we go.
God,
What's coming up next?
podcast wise.
Yeah.
Next week we've got a really cool interview. I won't say too much about it. Just hopefully solidifying a date.
Mm-hmm.
I would have loved it to have been this episode, but the drummer wasn't available.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully they will be. There's a couple in that I need to reach out and kind of firm up.
Yeah.
And that's as a year, bro.
I know. I can't believe it. Like
No.
last week was technically our
The
2 weeks
21st,
ago.
I think, was the year,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty cool. So thanks to everybody that's listened so far.
Yes, thank you all so much. We don't thank you enough.
If you haven't, or if we haven't asked, feel free to just shoot us some ideas together if you want us to talk about any topics. We do say that quite regularly. If there's any questions you have, shoot them to Adam or the email address, and we can do our best to address them. Maybe get a wee bank of questions for the next one or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's been a lot of fun over the past year. You know.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
It's,
I've learned a lot about talking to people.
Yeah, you think? Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you listen to the early ones, I think I learned the lesson of just let people talk.
Yeah. It's hard. I get it because like in this recorded media, you don't know. What am I trying to say? You'll have learned over the past year that I'm terrible with words. But yeah, it's trying to just learn. It's like anything. It's like learning a new skill.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
Just trying to work it all out.
Yeah. Look at the socials this week because there's some pretty righteous drum kits going out to people. So you might see some lovely new gear.
Yeah, that's it. So we've had a lot of lovely gear land.
Yeah, there's a few kit collections coming in and stuff that will be really nice to see on the socials.
Yes, absolutely. If you don't know where to find us on the socials, how have you found this? Then if you know where we are. So we're at Drummers Only UK on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter as well.
Mm-hmm.
You can obviously find us in store, live, in person, in Glasgow and Leeds. Pick up the phone if you want to phone us and ask us a question, or if you've got any drum kit woes, or you maybe need some new heads, maybe you want some new drums, new cymbals. You know,
Snare drums.
we've got some pretty righteous snare drums
Yep.
in. All the new Mapex Black Panther stuff's in. Steve Gadd's snare drum.
We've only 2 left.
We've only 2 left now.
One in each store.
One in each store. So there you go. So
Bear in mind, Part X is still a vibe.
mhm.
If you want shiny new gear and you have dusty old gear that you want rid of,
Yep.
we'll help you do that. You don't need an appointment now, guys, so don't worry about if you want to come visit us. We had a customer today that thought we still needed appointments, so
Mhm.
no, that's not a thing anymore.
Yeah.
So feel free to just pop in.
It's also worth mentioning as well, even though you don't need an appointment anymore, if there's a specific piece of gear that you've seen on the website and you would like to get some personal time with it, then you can book an appointment to try out certain
Mhm.
things, you know, and either myself, Chris, Dave, or anyone who's in the shop will see to your own personal needs
Mhm.
and make sure you're looked after.
Yeah, but
Make sure you guys subscribe as well. If
Mhm.
you haven't subscribed to the podcast,
Mhm.
feel free to leave a review if you feel so inclined. Share it with your drummer friends.
yes,
want as
if
well.
you're audio only, if you're just listening, bear in mind there's YouTube videos of these now. We do film them.
Yes, jump over to YouTube and have a look if you want to listen to the same conversation again, but you actually see the reactions. Then
Yeah.
that's also a thing as well. I think we're going to keep the video thing going forward.
Yeah, I think so.
It's really quite interesting.
It is. It can be a pain in the ass to edit, but
Yeah.
that's because I'm new to editing videos.
Well, it was your idea.
It was my idea, so I'll take
Shot
it on.
yourself in the foot with that one. Yeah, so it'd be quite cool, obviously, when we can get to the point where we can have physical guests again. I think a video podcast will be pretty
Yeah,
righteous with that kind of
Absolutely.
thing. You know?
But yeah, have a good weekend.
Yes, enjoy.
Or week, whatever, because I'm thinking that people are listening to this over the weekend, but they're not. It
They're
comes out on a
absolutely not.
Tuesday, so yeah. And enjoy your drums. Enjoy all the other stuff. We'll see you later.
Yes, and if anyone has any questions or anything they would like to talk about the podcast,
Okay.
bye.